Welcome to Just Relationships, the show that offers you concrete ways to make your relationships better. Whether it's your boss, your spouse, your children, or your friends, the quality of your relationships in life directly affects how you feel about yourself and the success you achieve. Your host, Dr. Duffy Spencer, a psychotherapist, telecoach, author, and seminar leader, will interview top experts to help you learn to manage this essential part of your life. And now, here's your host, Dr. Duffy Spencer.
Greetings to you. Have you ever been hurt? Well, you say, of course. Who hasn't? Well, yes. And what about the idea of not only having been hurt in your own life, but carrying the memories of past hurts from your two lineages, from both your mother and your father, and that these memories are in your unconscious and they impact you. And we're going to talk about how to understand more about this and what to do about it. So obviously you want to stay tuned, because I'm very happy to have back as my guest Kate O'Connell, who is the author of Beyond the Imprint, a new modality for mental health practitioners and those seeking their help. And so welcome back, Kate.
Oh, thanks. I'm so glad to be back.
Oh, thank you. So we can't assume that everyone has heard part one. So what we want to do is understand the DNA heritage we have, as well as the cultural heritage. You know, I remember in my social science courses many years ago, the whole concept of the tabula rasa. You know, are we born with a blank slate? And in the last show you had referenced that, the whole nature-nurture concept. So there's no such thing as a blank slate, huh, Kate O'Connell?
No, not completely blank. Given the fact that at the moment of conception we've inherited all of the memory from our respective DNA lineages. And then depending on the environment in the womb, our first environment that we've been implanted depending on mom's stress levels, then we're starting to take in at a very deep level, at a cellular level, whether or not we're safe or not. Mm. So a whole lot has already happened before we're born.
Mm. Now, I'm guessing, because I'm having some of these thoughts, that our listeners are thinking, well, I'm doomed. Right? I'm born, you had said in the last show, 14 generations at least of lineage that we are carrying, and in the womb and prenatal, and so. Well,
you just opened the door for me to make a really big pitch. Your listeners are doomed unless they read my book.
Well, there you go. So Beyond the Imprint, Kate O'Connell, what is that called? Apostrophe, right. I'm not even thinking, my God. O''Connell. Yes, people, you have to read this book. I'm so fascinated by it. It's so, I guess, both scary and uplifting at the same time. And in the last show, you had talked about it's not what happens to us, it's our emotional response to it. Yet, if it's in the unconscious, you know, how do we make 14 generations of memories conscious?
So we don't. What we do is we focus in the moment in dissolving what we're carrying within us.
Okay.
As memory. And my spiritual teachers, what's very interesting is a lot of my understanding was through spiritual teachers representing all the wisdom teachings on the planet for 20-something years before I stepped into graduate school at the age of 43. And one of the consistent teachings, no matter who I was sitting with, was the understanding that when we heal in the moment, we heal our respective lineages going in both directions.
Oh, Oh, that's wonderful.
So that's how we do it. Again, the focus being with the self, and exclusively and primarily with the self. Now, this opens the door to talk about the understanding that why this is difficult for people is because of the trauma imprinting that we are all encoded with. We tend to not think of ourselves as having that scope or breadth of influence because our trauma creates extremely limiting beliefs about the self. Self-deprecating beliefs and our shadow material that we suppress. So the healing process is about truly connecting to the understanding of how incredibly awesome and powerful we are. And in that increasing awareness, the healing begins and the imprints dissolve.
Yes. So it's almost as if, that old story about you're already a winner because you were came from the one sperm out of millions and millions that made it to the egg. And
right.
Yeah. And so
the odds were against it.
Right. The odds were against it. And then in survival of the fittest, our body types and all of that got regenerated so that we already are physically winners.
Yes.
And right. And so the traumatic memories of our ancestors that are somehow in our cellular memory, would you say?
Yes.
Okay.
And it explains intergenerational patterns.
Right.
And I'll just share very quickly a very awesome example of that in my own life. When I met my husband-to-be, we were 19 years old. He had experienced less than a year prior to us meeting, a horrific trauma, and he had a permanent tremor in his hand. And I found out after my parents met him, my mother shared with me that when she met my father at around the same age, he had experienced a horrific trauma just before they met, and he had a permanent tremor in his hand.
Wow.
That is how these patterns can show up.
So do you think that what you're saying is that you were attracted to him as your husband to be partially for that reason?
Absolutely, and everything that he presented with in terms of what our codependent relationship dynamics ended up being about and how they manifested. I rescued him.
Right.
He came from a very different part of the city than I did, and to be perfectly honest, he was not what my parents had thought for me or dreamed for me, and that's often what happens, is who we become attracted to is not at all what our parents would have scripted for us.
Right.
And what's interesting is the more I've written about this and worked with this material, is I've come to understand that all of our trauma imprinting, all of the memory that we carry in the 50 trillion cells of our body determines what our individual vibrational frequencies are. Mm-hmm. And so literally what's happening when we meet each other, our significant other, across a dark room and look at them and say, damn, that's attractive.
Right.
What's actually happening, and what happened in my case, is my respective wounding and his respective wounding was in resonance with each other.
Right.
It was just purely vibrational resonance. And that's how we found each other, in the same way my parents found each other. And so back to inheriting memory, then of course we would be recreating these types of patterns.
Wow. So would you say that this is what we call a soulmate?
I don't like to use that term, and the reason I don't is because of what's inferred through conditioning over the years is A, that there's really only one person for us that's appropriate, and B, that it's kind of divinely guided, as opposed to the fact that what I've come to believe, And obviously, when I was 19, I kind of believed that I had met him. But, I think the fact that he was completely different than what I had been conditioned to be looking for, and he was driving a Yamaha 650 Special and drop dead gorgeous, didn't hurt.
That didn't hurt, no.
At all.
Oh, yeah.
But what I believe is that these dances that we do, these with the significant other, are very sacred, because when we come together with our respective wounding, and it's going to determine our capacity to be in healthy, non-codependent relationships. When we come together, there is the opportunity in that dance, through the reflections that we project onto each other, to awaken each other to what's actually occurring. And so I believe that we will continue to dance with people and possibly have multiple partners in one lifetime, because that is part of the awakening process. And the fact that it's more acceptable to have multiple partners than, say, it was during the time that my parents were coming up also indicates that there is a paradigm shift occurring that just allows that in one lifetime it might be appropriate to dance with a number of different individuals, because what gets reflected back to us will be different with each individual.
Right. Absolutely. We learn about different aspects of ourselves with different people.
Yes, we absolutely do.
Yeah. So, my goodness, we were going to talk about energy medicine, and we were going to talk about what happened in Virginia, and So, where do you want to go, Kate? We have about 12 minutes left. Oh my goodness.
Is there a part 3 to this?
Yes, we can. You must come back, my dear. You must come back.
Thank you. I would love to come back. I'm really enjoying myself.
Thank you.
Let's do Charlottesville.
Okay, Charlottesville. Here we go.
So, I'm in it, and it hasn't ended. It's been a while since there was the gathering of neo-Nazis and the KKK and the response to it and the horrific violence and carnage, and the city is still recovering. Dave Matthews and a number of musicians are coming on the 24th to help with that. And so what I observed and what I noticed, because I'm always thinking about everything outside of me relative to the modality, and does the modality apply to what's happening? And so a couple of central themes I was really struck with. One which I have not posted on Facebook or shared with a lot of people, because I recognized I get a lot of pushback on it, but we are going into the field of energy medicine to talk about this, or energetics in general.
Good.
Is we have a group of people who came to Charlottesville to demonstrate an extreme ideology that was going to activate, and did activate, a tremendous amount of trauma imprinting going back generations in our African American community. And in response to that, a lot of very well-meaning people came out in opposition to these individuals. So the first thing I became aware of, because I believe that whatever's happening within the individual can be translated to the collective and vice versa. So when I talk about this with individuals who are dancing with another in a relationship, is that you want to be able to do your best to not be in opposition to whatever's happening outside of you. Because energetically, when you are in opposition to what's happening outside of you, that's when you reinforce the imprint.
Oh.
And how the imprint even occurs in the first place is because unconsciously, in response